All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 4. That is right, week number 4 of your 9489 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Chase K. Austin, and what we are going to do today is we are going to have a state of the course update that actually might not be that quick this time around, and then after that, I am going to get off topic from the subject matter of the week a little bit. This week, our subject matter is tangible cultural heritage, but actually what I'm going to do, and it's relevant due to recent events, is I'm going to talk about cultural heritage in sports. Specifically, we'll talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. The Super Bowl just passed. It was not a good one. Congratulations if you are a Seahawks fan. And then also the Winter Olympics are currently going on, and so I am also going to talk a little bit about the not the Winter Olympics specifically, but the Olympics as a cultural heritage thing. Okay. So we are going to get into that, but yes, we'll get into the state of the course updates first. And so let's get into it. Pause. Okay, so first let me get something really kind of silly out of the way, but this is just how things are going to be for a little while, probably the rest of the semester and maybe even longer. So, I use ScreenPal to record these, and my ScreenPal on my computer, that is my university-owned computer, that one has glitched for some reason, and I put in a ticket, and quite frankly, ScreenPal, they're not able to help me. So I am actually having to record the check-in videos for the time being on my laptop, my personal laptop that I own, as opposed to the university issued one, and this is not ideal at all. I don't know how it looks on your screen, probably the way it does on mine, but definitely on my screen, I look very grainy, and there is a lot of stuff just behind me and that sort of thing, like just gray. The picture isn't as clear as I would like and all that sort of thing. So I'm sorry if this distracts you, but this is just what we're working with for the time being, okay? Hopefully things will get better. Hopefully I will be able to get some sort of update with ScreenPal on my university issued laptop, and that one just apparently has a much better camera. So we will work with this for now, but yeah, for now, just bear with me as I deal with my own lesser equipment as opposed to the superior university issued equipment. And anyway, if you can still see me, I guess that is what really matters, even if I'm not in as great of clearness or detail. But anyway, let's go into a few things. First of all, I do want to again commend you all for being just such a great audience for Josh last week. That is one of my favorite presentations in all of the classes that I teach. Josh does a phenomenal job, and you all were very engaged, and I was very appreciative of the attention that you all were paying, the engagement that you all were showing, all of those things. It was wonderful. So please maintain that for the next two guest speakers that we're going to have, but that was perfect. And I'm glad that we really got an understanding of the sound aspect. Again, he works at the Library of Congress Sound Archival Project. But the thing is, and this is the reason why you separate tangible heritage from intangible heritage, or one of the reasons why you separate these things in a cultural heritage class, is because when you interact with cultural heritage, you interact with it with your senses, but your senses are going to be very different in their interaction with it based on whether you are interacting with tangible cultural heritage or intangible cultural heritage, as you can imagine. So tangible cultural heritage, of course, you can a lot of times hold it, and if not, you can still see it, you can still smell it, whatever. And a lot of times with your intangible cultural heritage, you are still using a lot of times your listening ears in order to engage intangible cultural heritage, and that's what you were kind of being introduced to or groomed into with Josh's presentation. And again, I think you all did very well. There were things like, especially that first lesbian wedding that he played the sound from, the interview from, that sort of thing. You can't really capture the emotion the same way with text. Yeah, you could read a transcript of that, but I remember Dakota having that reaction, "Oh my heart." Well, yeah, that's because you can hear it. You're not just seeing it in text. You can actually hear the emotion. You can hear the people speak, and that just makes it so much fuller. Okay, so you all did great with that last week, and you all got, I believe, what I wanted you all to get out of that. Okay, all right. So let's before we get into anything that's upcoming, let's take a look at some of the previous announcements, because I do need to get into finally talking about the cultural the Heritage Project, and I've already had a few of you reach out to me saying that you wanted to do a Heritage Project instead. That is totally fine. Again, that is what I would prefer. I've already approved one of them. So hopefully I will be approving several more. But again, you do need to reach out to me by March the 31st with your idea. But yes, so the final paper is a 25-point paper. And it's a long paper. It's like 10 pages long. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight. But I learn when I read your papers, and that's great, but I'm the only one who benefits from that, right? And so I want more than just me to benefit from, man, this video really looks terrible. Yeah, I want more than just me to benefit from the Heritage projects that you all do. And so the way for that to happen is if we instead of doing a paper, if you do something that actually helps people externally, helps people outside of this class. And if you've had me for reference, then you know that in my reference class, I have you do a Wikipedia edit assignment where you basically edit a Wikipedia page and then you write out some things about that process. But when you edit that Wikipedia page, yeah, you are enhancing a page that anybody could stumble upon at any time, and your edits may stay there for a long time. Your edits may still be there 10 years from now, and if your edits are still there 10 years from now, then you know that is 10 years of the work that you have done influencing and assisting people outside of this classroom. So it becomes bigger than just the instructor just reading your work. So when I talk about the Heritage projects, there are a wide variety of things that can work, and they don't have to be big things, folks. That's what I want you all. Doing the Heritage Project may actually be a lot less time consuming than writing that paper. It does not have to be a big thing, okay? So, yeah, basically, if you have some idea, and these are just some examples, but you can get creative with this. If you think about something, just let me know what you think about, and it may be something that I approve of. But definitely, some of the things that have worked in the past, but again, you're not limited to these things. I've had people create promotional flyers or materials or brochures for museums in the past. They did it for free. That is one of the things. You can't charge for the work that you're going to be doing. Now, if it's something that is an extension of your job, then that's different. And I'll give you an example of that, because that is what I have approved so far this semester. Is one of you is doing something that is basically an extension of your job. So yeah, you're getting paid for it in the sense that it's part of your regular job. However, it is something that you didn't have to do for your job. So it is something that you did. You took on some extra work at your job, and you are getting paid for, I mean, you're not getting paid for you are getting paid for that extra work that you're doing, but it's not part of your normal job assignments, if that makes sense. So this person, and just for FERPA reasons, if you want to let people know who you are, you can, but just for FERPA reasons, I'm not going to let people know who you are. But this person works at a library, and the library is doing a read-in for, it's Black History Month, it's February, and they're doing a read-in for Black History Month. And this person is assisting with the read-in. They're helping organize it. Your classmate is also promoting this, reminding people of it, helping organize. And then they're going to do some of the logistical work on the day of. And so that sort of thing, that definitely counts. But there are a lot of other things that can potentially count. So again, I've had people produce flyers before, and they didn't charge the museum. They donated the flyers, or they donated the file for the flyers for free, and then the museum was able to print them out and that sort of thing. You can help process an archive or a special collection, but you need to reach a benchmark. The first semester that I taught this class, I had somebody do a postcard digitization project. This was somebody from Missouri, and he wanted to digitize postcards using, I believe, Content2Yum. And he used, used Content2Yum to digitize Missouri-based postcards and made that digitization project available for free online. That was cool, and he got the points for that. Preparing a heritage food. It can be this simple. It really can be this simple. So last spring, I had a student who was of German ancestry, German heritage, and what she did was she just invited some friends over, and she cooked some. She had like a German cookbook, and she cooked some German foods that she knew how to make, and she prepared them for her friends, and did basically just like a little program where she told her friends about, okay, this is the history of this food. This is what it's called. This is what goes into it, blah, 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 blah. And then she let them, basically just eat the food. And she took a few pictures, and that was it. She sent the pictures to me for documentation, and she got full credit for that. That works, y'all. Um, Creating a display for a local library that is heritage, that will work. Performing music, dance, or poetry for free at an event with heritage implications. And I know somebody is considering doing dance. That is perfectly fine. Just continue to work with me to refine that idea. And if you're somebody else who knows of a dance program or something that you can work on, that is, again, it totally fits the spirit of the assignment. Delivering a lecture at a library that has heritage implications. At a public library, sometimes you can just ask, as long as you're not trying to profit, you can just ask a public library in a lot of cases, hey, I have this idea, I want to just deliver this lecture, yada yada. And if the space is available, they'll put you on the program. It'll be up to you to promote and to promote as well as present. But if you can, and even if you just get one or two people to show up, that is still one or two people that are benefiting from that program. Okay. And that can be something like you can deliver something about local history, about local music, something like that. Restoring a cemetery or identifying people in unmarked graves. That's been done. Volunteering your labor at a heritage event, such as working admissions at a festival, helping set up and clean up, those sorts of things. But again, you cannot accept payment. Teaching a child how to play a sport, or teaching a child to dance or something like that. But playing Scrabble with your own kid, that does not count. So again, reach out to me and we can refine it into something that is going to count. Okay. But yes, I would really like to see those of you who have ideas for heritage projects. I would really like to see you all go ahead and do those. Okay. Reach out to me to see if it'll fly, but more than likely, if it's not something that will fly on its own, you and I can continue to talk until we make it something that will be acceptable. Okay. I did want to also note very quickly, again, a little bit of self-promotion for me here. So, yeah, this podcast episode that I was on, if you click here, I'm not going to play it myself, but that's me right there. This was released on January the 29th, and I talk about Henrietta Mae Smith, who and I'll actually show you all this book. All right, and I'm actually going to show you two books really quick, but first of all, yes, this is the book that I have a chapter in. Goodness, I hate this camera thing that's going on here. Okay, hold on, sorry. All right, this camera is absolutely terrible, at least on my end. I hope it's showing up better on your end, but we'll see after I actually upload it to YouTube. But yes, The Legacy of Black Women in Librarianship, When They Dared to Be Powerful. I actually turned the light off so that I could hopefully get that a little better. I'm also going to show you this book right here really quick, and I'll link these in the announcement too, maybe to their Amazon pages in the announcement. Oh gosh, this is terrible. Okay, well, the name of this book is White Man's Heaven. All right, trying to get this the best that I can. So now I got my head all up in the camera. White Man's Heaven. The reason I'm showing you this is because one of the pieces that you're going to read this week is going to be talking about White Man's Heaven, specifically Dorothy Berry, who last time I checked, she was an archivist up at Harvard. I don't know if she's still there, but she was there. She spoke to my classes one time, but she was unable to come back. But she was going to be one of your readings this week, and she's a Black woman who grew up in the Ozarks area of Missouri, and that was certainly there's certainly some interesting history there, and that's why that area is called White Man's Heaven. But anyway, so I will link the Amazon pages to those books or something in the announcement as well. But yeah, so that's just a little self-promotion, and aside from that, let's get back into the class and finish up this state of the course update. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and make these small again, and at least it looks like the screen part, even though the The part that's recording me and the stuff that I hold up isn't looking too good with this camera, but at least the screen part is doing fine. But yes, let's go ahead and get into what is on the horizon now, and we've got a lot of things to X out. I'm actually going to pause while I do that. All right, so yeah, as far as what's coming up on the horizon, your visit to the Cultural Heritage Site that is due on February 15th, which is this coming Sunday. So that's going to be your first major written assignment. It's going to be worth 10 points. That's going to be coming up this Sunday. And outside of that, it doesn't really look like there's much really for you all to worry about. It's just typical discussion board prompts for the time being. Aside from that, we're going to go into this for a little bit here, but I think the directions here are pretty self-explanatory. Plus, I think that there is a sample paper there, so that can give you some guidance. I reward creativity. I want you all to be aware that I reward creativity, so you don't have to use the sample paper as some sort of blueprint or some sort of like guideline as to how you actually have to operate with this, but it's there if you need it. But yeah, so you're going to write a 4 to 6 page paper. Your references can count as your 4th to 6th page, and you do not need a cover page. But do not go where you currently work, by the way. Do not go to your library and claim that that is your cultural heritage visit. Please don't do that. I would prefer it be somewhere either new or somewhere you don't go often. So also, even though, like, for instance, churches can at times qualify as cultural heritage sites, but if you go to the church that you go to every Sunday, that's still not really that's not in the spirit of the assignment. Just kind of broaden your horizons a little bit. Jeez, that's what cultural heritage is about. But yes, you're basically going to, and please don't do, in fact, I say don't do Q&A. Q&A is lazy. I had one student one semester who was just doing everything Q&A. He would just take the questions that I posed in a prompt and answer them, and I'm just like, this is freaking lazy, dude. Like, no, don't do that. Show me that you can actually make an essay. Something that can go from point to point in a logical way that people will be interested in reading. Because one thing that I've also noticed is that people don't like reading Q&As. They don't read that well. They just don't. So anyway, just go ahead and visit the site, interact with the site as much as you can, and as well as you can, try to use some of the foundational knowledge that you've already gotten from the readings that we've had thus far. And just give me a little bit of a write-up, okay? Now, use that Purdue OWL, and I talked about the two common Purdue OWL. I talked about the common APA mistakes you do have to use proper APA as far as formatting your references and things like that, and I will count off if you don't. So if you did not watch the check-in video where I talked about the two common APA mistakes, you may want to go back and watch that, unless you already have had me before or otherwise already know your APA rules pretty well, okay? If you have any questions about whether or not something counts as a heritage site, you can just reach out to me and I would be more than happy to tell you yes, no, or yes, but, okay? And if you, instead of visiting a site, if you want to do something like attend a heritage event, that is fine. But again, just let me know what you're thinking of. Like, for instance, if there is a festival, now this is due Sunday, but if there's a festival this Friday that you want to attend and you're like, okay, let me go to this festival and then do a write-up on that, that sort of thing will count too. So it doesn't have to be tangible heritage like this site. It can be, or an exhibit or something like that. It can be intangible heritage like a festival or something of that nature. Anyway, just reach out to me if you have any questions. All right, and Lord, this is glitchy. I really hope I can get, I don't think I'm going to get ScreenPal working on my university laptop again, but this is just the pits here. Okay, let me go ahead and pause from here, and then we will get this going as far as the second part. We're done with the State of the Course update. Now we're going to talk about first the Super Bowl and then the Olympics as far as cultural heritage and games. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to link the two articles that I'm going to be just talking a little bit about. This is already a 20-minute video. I'm going to keep it at 35 minutes unsped, so that means that I can't really talk about them in depth that much. So I'm going to say a little bit about these articles, and then also I'm going to have them linked in the announcement, and they will be optional reading. All right, so let's start with this article right here, Super Bowl Sunday, a national holiday and a global curiosity. This is from the International Journal of History and sport, but there are cultural elements that I just want to highlight really quick in here. So this article does talk about the history of the Super Bowl. It starts out with speaking about how the Super Bowl started out in the 1960s. It was the result of the merger between the American Football League and the National Football League, and those became conferences, those sorts of things. Tickets originally were $12, $6 to $12. I've seen $12 and not the $6 figure and some other things that I read. And yes, there were more than 35,000 seats, but there was more than 35,000 seats remain unoccupied. I believe that I believe the figure for the first Super Bowl, the attendance was, I believe, 12,000 people. So, not nearly what you're going to see these days. And that might have even been 1,200. Let me actually look that up real quick. Let me pause. Okay, so I was way off either way. The attendance at the first Super Bowl was about 61,000 people, but still there were 35,000 unoccupied seats. And as you all know, that would not happen today. But the thing is, there were a lot of contributing elements that this paper talks about that led to the evolution of the Super Bowl from just a game to 50 years later just being a cultural phenomenon in the United States. And there were a lot of things that played into that. One of the things that played into that was, quite frankly, the emergence of television. And with the emergence of television, the first Super Bowl, no, television had been around for a while. Television had been around, I believe, television started like mass televisions in-house in the United States. I think that started like right after World War II, or around the time of World War II. So we're talking about the 1940s. So by 1967, television in homes was a pretty solid thing, but you started seeing more middle class families and that sort of thing getting television, and television watching becoming more of a family-oriented thing within the 1970s. And so at the time that was happening, the emergence of the sitcom really took off in the 1970s, for instance, with figures like Norman Lear, who was associated with like the Jeffersons, and which was more 80s, but 70s as well. But All in the Family, Maude, those sorts of things. So yeah, and as television grew, and the family-oriented elements of television grew in the 1970s, so too did the NFL saw an opportunity to grow with this. And so in the 70s, the NFL secured a lot of lucrative TV deals, and they became something that became a national thing, something that people they centered some of their Sunday activities around watching television, watching the Super Bowl. That phenomenon really began in the 1970s. And so really as the 1970s continued, there was a capitalistic push, I would say, that kind of helped the Super Bowl evolve from not just another game, but into a cultural phenomenon. And so when you have that type of energy and you have that type of commercialism, yes, it didn't take that long. It only took 50 years. This I believe talks about the 50-year mark at some point in here. Yeah, it spoke about the 50-year mark at some point in here, and how by the time you got to Super Bowl 50, the Super Bowl was not just it wasn't just a special game that happened on a particular Sunday every year. It actually reached near holiday status. That's how important the Super Bowl came. It became almost a holiday in American culture. And that's the thing, like our holidays are part of our cultural heritage as well. They a lot of times have roots, they've evolved over time. We know that Christmas, for instance, we always talk about how Christmas has some pagan roots and some pagan traditions mixed into the religious elements of it. But Christmas has become the all-time American holiday slash consumerism, just out of control, right? But the Super Bowl has some elements of that as well, and that includes the Super Bowl being an event where there are some commercials that only broadcast during the Super Bowl, and this piece notes that as well. But the consumerism that the Super Bowl highlights and embraces, all of these sorts of things are from just again, it was almost calculated in a way. It was there was a capitalistic calculation of it. But it helped morph the Super Bowl from just a game to something that became something that everybody in America was talking about. And the fact that it grew to that level in only 50 years, and in fact, in less than 50 years, is just absolutely amazing. You know, that's something that I'm not sure will ever be replicated again. Just the way that the Super Bowl became, again, just it went from being just a championship game to an essential part of recognizing American sports culture. And so you will also see, as you kind of go through this article, if you choose to access this optional article, you'll see that the Super Bowl was also used for some other points that this piece brings up. Is that the Super Bowl has also been used for messaging, political messaging. There was a pep rally around the Gulf War that's mentioned in the paper somewhere. I've read the paper really quickly, so I can't even tell you exactly where that was at this point. But then also the Super Bowl became something that captured the imagination of international audiences because it became such a big deal here in the United States that other audiences abroad were like, okay, what's going on? Why are the Americans so into this? And so it has captured the imagination and the attention and all of other countries as well, because other countries are like, how did this happen? The United States is not the only country that sees this thing that has grown to such a big historic thing in only 50 years. And so there are other countries that are like, how did this happen? And how can we have something like this? Because now the Super Bowl also does have international appeal. And so people look at that, in other countries, they look at that and they're like, you know, just how? And how can we replicate this or even outdo this? But it's something that is, I mean, it's just an American phenomenon that really, really, in the span of only a half a century, went from just something that was kind of significant to something that everybody in the country pays attention to in some way. And when I say everybody in the country pays attention to it in some way, what I mean is not literally everybody, but even people who aren't sports fans. A lot of times they'll watch the Super Bowl because of the commercials. And what other program do you watch for the commercials? The Super Bowl may be the only one. But then also it became something that became such a big deal that even people who didn't care about the Super Bowl, what they would do is they would base part of their identity on talking about, I don't care about the Super Bowl. You know, they would talk about, hey, I don't care about the Super Bowl. Like that makes them some sort of badass or something. And when I was on Facebook, I would see that a lot. I would see people who posted a meme and they're like, this is me not caring about the Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, but you've still managed to make the Super Bowl the centerpiece of what you're talking about. The fact that you are talking about you're not caring about it, and usually what you don't care about isn't important to bring up, but the Super Bowl is such a big thing that you actually find it noteworthy to bring up that you don't care about it. So something amazing has gone on with American sports culture and the Super Bowl and its place within American sports culture. And again, I don't know that that will be replicated ever again, and if ever again, probably not anytime soon. Now, I am going to soapbox just a little bit here and say part of the reason, and I want to expand your minds a little bit and just kind of give you something to chew on as far as thought-provoking. One of the reasons I say that I don't think that it'll ever be replicated is because we are going to, within, I think, the next 100 years, we are potentially going to be looking at the end of sport as we know it, because people are going to be using technology to actually enhance themselves genetically. And so one of the things about sport is that you have the people who play in the Super Bowl, they are athletic specimens, right? Like not just every Dick, Tom, and Harry can go out there and make an NFL team. These people are very exceptional in their genetics, in their mindset, in their resilience, and all of that stuff. But people are going to be using, within, I think, the next 100 years, people are going to be using genetic altering to make themselves more athletic, to make themselves stronger mentally, and that sort of thing. And so when you're doing all of that genetic alteration, then what happens to sport, right? When you've got all of these genetic modifications going on, I believe that that can, again, lead to the end of sport as we know it, because then once you have a lot of people who are on the same genetic playing field, and then they also have, um, whatever hypnosis or whatever AI is used to alter how people think, once those sorts of things happen, then how do you make competition interesting? We haven't really figured that out yet. Okay, that's it for this article. Let's talk a little bit about, excuse me, this Olympics as cultural heritage article, and I'm going to link both, and then we'll wrap it up after that. Okay, now I am going to talk about this final this article right here that is from 2007. This is the Olympic Games as a cultural event from Savik from 2007. So again, nearly 20 years ago. But we are during, like right now, the Winter Olympics are going on, and this is a huge cultural phenomenon. But one thing that I am going to take away about the Olympic Games, I was going to actually kind of go through this article and kind of like say this, that, and the fourth about it, but I've decided that what would be better served is to let you all, if you want to pursue this article as an optional reading, you can go ahead and do that. But what I want to do is highlight one of my theories and talk about how this article just kind of plays into that. So I have a theory, and I do have a theory that if we all just kind of accept it, appreciate it, and try to understood the cultural heritages of not just our own cultural heritage, but the cultural heritage of everybody across the globe, I do think that that could be one step in getting us toward world peace. There's not ever going to actually be world peace, unfortunately, because of the existence of what I call cluster B. I know that that term isn't used in psychology anymore, but there is there used to be what was called cluster B, and that was a collection of 4 personality disorders. And these personality disorders were things where they were characterized, basically all 4 of these things, by people basically lacking empathy and using manipulation in order to achieve desired outcomes. And having a pervasive pattern of doing that. Everybody does that from time to time, but having a pervasive pattern of doing that. And the thing is, cluster B people, and again, I'm using outdated terminology, so you psychology people don't get on me, but the thing is, cluster B people tend to also, even though this isn't in the DSM, they are known for having remarkable intelligence, maybe not having the greatest emotional intelligence, but as far as intellect, cluster B people are very good at reading people and very good at getting people to do things that they want them to do. I say that to say that cluster B people a lot of times rise to power. A lot of world leaders could have been diagnosed as cluster B under those old criteria for cluster B. And so as long as there are cluster B people out there who lack that empathy and that type of thing, these are the types of people who will be able to influence and manipulate people into going into resource wars, for instance, and things like that. But even with the actual possibility of world peace probably not being something that's achievable, I will say that one thing that I believe could lead to or be a step in the right direction for getting us to world peace would be if everybody just understood, again, that cultural heritage is written in our DNA. Like, it doesn't matter what culture you're from, there is dance associated with that culture, there is music associated with that culture, there are artifacts and architecture associated with that culture. A lot of times you don't see that presented in a genuine way. Because, and I'll use Africa and pre-colonialized America for an example. A lot of people think that Africans who don't live in the colonized areas just live in huts, and that Native Americans just lived in teepees and Eskimos just lived in igloos and things like that. But that is so far from the truth. There was architecture in pretty much every culture that you can find. It's just that architecture met the needs of the people who used it. So, yes, historically, there was a lack of, for instance, 2-story buildings in Africa prior to European colonialization. But the need wasn't there. And if the need wasn't there, then the need just didn't emerge. But in Europe, you did have a more concentrated population, and so the need for two stories was pretty self-evident. So things of that nature, these are the things you have to kind of think about when you're thinking about history and differences within people and cultural heritage and that sort of thing. But I do think that if we actually contextualized each other's cultural heritage properly and just understood that our differences didn't make anyone inferior or superior to other groups of people, it was just differences that manifested based on environment. Hold on, my dog is sorry, he does that squealing. He just has bad skin. He's a 16-year-old dog who's always had bad skin. But okay, so what I do want to scroll down to is actually this little piece here in the conclusion. So when I talk about world peace, I really want to kind of highlight this particular which I can't highlight it, but this particular paragraph right here in the conclusion. We're talking about I'll do the quote here. There we can see athletic mastery and a coming together of young people without regards of ideology, race, and religion. That is such a big deal, and that's something that the Olympic Games do. Countries can be at war with each other, have just the worst foreign policy relations with each other. America and China, we're not doing that well right now. And there are other countries that are not doing well right now. Iran and Israel, they're not doing well right now when they rarely ever do that well with each other. India and Pakistan, Congo and Rwanda, you name it. There are so many countries that just are not doing that well with each other on a foreign relations tip. And yet these countries can come together and they can participate in the Olympic Games. And when they participate in the Olympic Games, it's not about war. It's not even about who's inferior and who's superior, because even when a country has, like, even if the United States, for instance, runs away with the medal count, which we do a lot of the times, we're not looking down on these other countries on an international scale. We have respect for the other countries, for the athletes who came from the other countries and competed on that stage. They have respect for them. A lot of times in Olympic Village, they're even showing more than respect, if you know what I mean, with each other. It kind of gets into kind of a fun fest with one another. But I say all of that to say the Olympic Games are, I believe, a perfect example of where we can use in sport and game is part of cultural heritage. Now, unfortunately, I don't have enough weeks to have an actual module about that, but it's something that I wish I had a module on. But when you look at what the Olympic Games represent, they represent a time where we decide, yes, we have differences, but instead of letting our differences be something that divide us, we allow these differences to give us a chance to come together and to compete on good terms, to compete in peace, and to even see our competition as a way of camaraderie, to see our competition as a way of respect for one another. I'll say that there are countries that participate in the Olympic Games but don't participate in a lot of sports. In the Winter Olympics, I don't know if countries like Kenya and Uganda participate in the Winter Olympics at all. That's something that I would have to look up, but certainly they participate in the Summer Olympics. And there are a lot of times where, yes, in American culture, we are looking down on African countries, where we're looking down on places like Kenya and Uganda, a lot of times based out of ignorance, because we have an Americanized view of what those countries are, and it's apparently nothing like what we see a lot of times in American media. But in Olympic Village, when the Kenyans and the Ugandans show up, there is respect. There's respect for what they do. There is respect for the fact that these people, they rose above whatever elements and hardships they were facing in their countries, and they came onto this international stage to have pride in their country and to represent their country and to do the best that they could in the name of their country. And so honestly, my question becomes, if we can do that with the Olympic Games, why can't we do that with other aspects of cultural heritage? Why can't we share our music with one another without it turning into some dipshit pissing contest like what we saw out of the halftime shows this year with the Bad Bunny versus Kid Rock nonsense? That was straight up nonsense. That's the opposite of where we should be going with our cultural heritage. We should be using it to unite, not to divide. And yes, there is politics interwoven within the Olympic Games and that sort of thing. We know that. We all know about Tommy Smith in the 1968 Olympics and that sort of thing. We all know about that. So we do know that politics can be interwoven in the Olympics as well. But certainly we don't have to make it into the, quite frankly, shit show that we saw with the halftime show this year. And quite frankly, again, we should be using our cultural heritage to cultivate world peace and understanding of one another, not to use it to divide people. And unfortunately, there are divisive forces within this country that decided that we were going to use the halftime show of the Super Bowl to be divisive this time around. But I'm hoping that we get our act together, because if we don't, trust me, that was looked at internationally. Russia and China, they know what happened with our division related to the Super Bowl halftime shows this year, and they're going to use that. They're going to keep that in our social media with their social media farms and trolls and that sort of thing, and they're going to use that to continue to undermine our country. And quite frankly, that sucks. We need to be going in the other direction, and I think the Olympics do show, especially looking at the Winter Olympics now. It looks like there hasn't been much politicizing of it at all. I'm not going to say there's been no politicizing of it, but I haven't read much of that or seen much of that in the news. So I think that we've largely been able to avoid that, and that's the direction that I feel that we should head. Anyway, I wanted this to be a 35-minute video, and it's 40, so let me go ahead and pause it. I am Dr. Jace, and the Olympics include more than just a fun to watch race. They include much, much more than that, and there are cultural heritage implications abound. If you want to learn more about those, then read this article that I'll link in the announcement. Until next week, ta-ta.